She had a face before she had serpents. She had hair, real hair, dark and alive, before she had venom. She had a life in temples, in morning light, in a body that was looked at before that same body was made into a weapon. And then something happened inside Athena's sacred temple, something the gods preferred no one remember. And the woman became the thing you know, Medusa. Most people know the end, the stone bodies, the cave, the hero with the reflecting shield and the divine blade. Almost no one knows what came before. But here's the part that should disturb you. The before is not hidden because it was lost. It's hidden because someone decided what she should become. And once you see what was done, and who did it, this myth never closes the same way again. Chapter 1. The Sister Who Could Die. Long before anyone built a curse into this story, Hesiod wrote about Medusa, the Theogony, one of the oldest surviving accounts of Greek cosmology, a document that predates Ovid by centuries and has no interest in being kind. In Hesiod's version, Medusa is one of three sisters, the Gorgons, born at the edge of the world, in the kind of geography myth reserves for things that should not be approached. Her sisters, Stheno and Euryale, are immortal. Medusa is not. Hold that detail. Because it is the first cruelty in her story, and it happens before a single god ever touches her. Three sisters. Same blood, same darkness, same geography at the edge of the known world. Two of them cannot die. One of them can. And the myth already knows. Without any curse, without any temple, without any act of transgression, which sister will become the trophy. Not because Medusa did something wrong, because she was the only one death could reach. In the oldest version of this myth, Medusa is not punished. She is selected. She is the mortal crack in an immortal family. The body that can end. The head that can be taken. The name that can be written into someone else's legend as proof of their greatness. Before a single snake grows, the myth has already chosen her. Chapter 2. The beauty they tried to erase. Here is what most modern retellings quietly remove. Pindar, another ancient source, writing centuries before the story hardened into the version you know, calls Medusa beautiful, not frightening, not monstrous, not something born already wrong. Beautiful Medusa. That phrase survives everything. It survives every stone gray carving, every severed head painting, every temple door decorated with her scream. Because if she was beautiful, and the ancient sources say she was, then the horror was not born, it was made. There is a before, a face that existed in the light, eyes that looked at the world without destroying it, hair that moved without venom. Pindar's account is short, a fragment, but it opens a door the rest of the myth tries very hard to keep closed. Because the question it raises is not, what was she? The question is, what was she before they changed her? And that question leads directly into Ovid, and into the part of the story that explains everything. Chapter 3. Inside the Temple. Ovid, writing in the Metamorphoses, asks the question directly. Why does Medusa alone have serpents in her hair? Not both Gorgon sisters, not every creature in the darkness, not every woman who ever stood too close to a god. Only Medusa, only the mortal one, only the one Hesiod already marked as the one death could reach. Why? Ovid's answer changes the entire myth. Medusa was famous for her beauty, specifically her hair. The feature people remembered first when she passed. She was seen. She was desired. She was watched by eyes that had not yet learned to fear hers. And then Poseidon saw her, god of the sea, shaker of the earth. One of the three great Olympian brothers who divided the cosmos between them. He wanted her. She refused. And Poseidon, who had oceans to command and storms to unleash, chose Athena's temple to take what he had already decided was his, a sacred space sworn to wisdom, protected, supposedly, by divine law. None of it stopped him. Medusa could not stop him. No mortal body in the ancient world could hold back an Olympian who had already made his choice. And when it was over, Athena returned to her temple. She saw what had been done to her sacred space. She did not go after Poseidon. She looked at Medusa. Chapter 4. The punishment travels downward. This is the part of the myth that should haunt you. Athena was powerful, but Poseidon was older, connected to Zeus, protected by the architecture of Olympus itself. To strike him was to declare war on the divine order she helped maintain. So the punishment traveled downward. It found the one with no Olympian blood, no divine father to appeal to, no sacred claim except her devotion, and her devotion had already been violated inside the very temple where she expressed it. Athena raised her hand, and Medusa's hair moved, not slowly, not gently. The serpents were already alive before Medusa understood they were part of her, cold, scaled, hissing at the same air she was still trying to breathe. Her beauty, the thing that had drawn every eye, was now a crown of venom. Every feature that once invited approach now warned away. And then the final piece of the curse: anyone who meets her eyes turns to stone. Read that slowly. The act of being seen, of simply looking back, becomes fatal. Medusa cannot walk among people, cannot be touched without danger, cannot be loved or spoken to closely, or even looked at without the one looking going cold and still and silent forever. She is not just changed, she is isolated in a way that has no door. The goddess who failed to protect her has now made her impossible to reach. This is the blueprint. Power wounds. Power rewrites what the wound means. Power teaches the world to fear the result, so the world never asks about the cause. Chapter 5. The hero and the tools he did not build. Perseus enters this story long after all of this has already happened. He does not know what Poseidon did. He does not know what Athena decided. He arrives after the exile, after the years of isolation, after countless men have already come to the cave and left behind new stone figures standing in the dark. He comes with a mission, and here is what that mission looks like. Athena gives him a mirrored shield. The same goddess who created Medusa's curse now hands someone else the tools designed to use it against her. Hermes provides a blade. The Grey are coerced into revealing the path. Every divine force in the myth that had a hand in making Medusa what she is now contributes something to the hunt. Perseus is armed by the gods. Medusa receives nothing. He approaches the cave. He uses the mirror to see without being seen, moving through a darkness built entirely on her suffering, careful not to trigger the only protection she has left. He finds her. He does not hesitate, and every version of this myth calls what happens next heroic. Chapter 6. What death could not end. Even in death, Medusa is not free. The gaze survives the severing. The power survives the body it lived in. The serpents keep moving. Perseus carries the head across the ancient world, using what was done to Medusa as a weapon in his own wars, turning enemies to stone, winning prizes, building the legend that the gods designed this entire mission to create. Then he returns it to Athena, who mounts it on her shield, the Gorgon, Medusa's screaming face, serpents rising, mouth open, eyes locked forward, worn by the goddess who destroyed her, as protection, as authority, as divine armor. This is the final act in her myth. Not mercy, not acknowledgement, appropriation. The same power that transformed her now displays what's left. Her suffering becomes Athena's symbol. Her curse becomes a weapon for the powerful. Her image becomes the thing sacred spaces use to warn off everything beneath them. The wound becomes the wall. Here is what survives every layer of this myth. In the oldest version, Medusa is chosen for destruction before she commits a single act. In the middle layer, she is called beautiful, a fragment too honest to erase. In Ovid's version, she is punished for something done to her. In every layer, every single one, Something was done to Medusa before the world was taught to fear her. The serpents grew over a face that already existed. The gaze became fatal before she ever chose to use it. And the monster the world inherited was built by the same hands that taught the world to call her that. They gave her a weapon for a face, so no one would remember what her face looked like before.